Let's talk about the tools that you're going to need 100% if you're going to tear down this camper 100%. Now, most people are going to say, I'm going to get out all my power tools, and no. It's going to be 3-to-1 hand tools versus power tools, and I'm going to show you why. Here's one I bet you didn't even think of. Check this out. Did you have lug wrench on your list? Because you are definitely going to need a lug wrench to get these lug nuts, or in this case, lug bolts off of this hub. So, if we come in here like this, take this off. As I said, this is a 1975 Roadrunner, and it is awesome. I can't wait to rebuild it. But as you can see, it has lug bolts instead of lug nuts. Very different from what I'm used to working on, but still very cool. So, the one you've probably forgot about or didn't think of, lug wrench. Here's another one you may not have thought about. Grinder. You're not going to use it a whole lot on deconstruction, even though you think you might. But for instance, the customer does not want to have propane, so we've got to remove this. And they're welded on. So I've got to come in here like this and use the grinder to remove this and then smooth it down. Number 2, grinder. All right, I know some of you have been in the camper game. You're going to say this next one, duh, obviously, screwdrivers. Now, yes, there are 3, but I'm counting them as one tool. They all have kind of the same name, except for Phillips head, pretty regular, normally used, especially in rebuilding, but sometimes in teardown, especially once we get into the 70s and up, you're going to use the Phillips. Now, if you're into the 60s, like I am, sometimes the 50s, it's going to be a lot of flathead screwdriver. I don't know how they did it because I don't know. It's a lot of work. Now here's one that a lot of people forget about and don't even know what it is, and you have to buy it at the tool specialty store or try to find it on Amazon. Clutch head screwdriver. You'll find these sometimes on the window regulators. The screws that are holding those in, you'll see the clutch head screwdriver. May not use it a lot, but you have to use it when you run into that screw. Up next on the hand tool parade, pliers. Again, yes, I know there's 3, but they all have their purpose and they all have more or less the same name. First one, just your regular pliers. You got to grab something, you got to pull it. Let's say the head comes off of a nail or a screw. You can get that dog on there, pry it out, and you're good to go with that set of pliers. There's just a lot of uses for a regular set of pliers. Next one, if you're pulling staples, you're going to need your needle nose pliers, because you could get into smaller spaces and you could twist them out. You get your smaller nails and your staples. Perfect for that. Then your side cuts. These are for when you're getting into the wiring. Generally, the wiring in this is shot. It's not even up to code. So we got to have our wiring. We got to cut it. Got to make sure that these are nice and sharp. You're going to have to use these to disconnect or to just take apart all of the wiring. Side cuts. Pliers. Next up on the hand tool hit parade, the obvious choice. Hammer. Yes. And if this doesn't work, get a bigger hammer, because we're tearing it apart anyway. Now, the obvious complement to the hammer, pry bar. You may need a crowbar. That's the bigger one. If things have been sitting around for a while, you may need a crowbar, but for what I think for us, pry bar definitely. So where do you need it? When you're trying to tear down your interior, number 1. So if you're coming up here and you got to get this out here, I'm really not getting that out. So I got to take this curled up end and I can jam it between the lumber and the luan right here. See how I'm pulling that apart? It's gonna work definitely very well on the interior. Now, sometimes you start to take the floor off from underneath, and what you'll find is that there are these carriage bolts. If you look, they're not designed for you to put a wrench on the top. They're rounded off. So when you start tightening this nut, it's going to pull this down into the wood. It's going to create its own square to hold it in place as you tighten this down. Well, you're going to get under there, and either you're going to take your grinder and you're going to grind that off, or you might be able to get that nut to come off like that, and then it's stuck. Just stuck. So what you're going to do, hammer. If that doesn't work, bigger hammer, and you're going to try to pop that up just enough that it's beyond that square. So then we take our pry bar and we can pry it out. Bottom, top, inside, outside, wherever you need it, pry bar and hammer are going to be your friend. So I know what you're saying. Okay, Rob. Okay. You've been through all the obvious choices. Get to it. Who's the star of the show, son? Get to it. Right here. Your drill, your screwdriver, your cordless or corded, whatever works for you. I like to use the cordless, and I think you should have all of your bits ready to go. I know, 1, 2, but interchangeable. Because, as I said, a lot of times you're going to use this Phillips head. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you right here. We're going to take this trim back on this window so that we can get to the screws, and we can remove the screws because we got to take this window out. The window's in great shape. I've got to be careful, and I've got to remove it carefully because I don't want to buy another window. So I got to take this trim back right here. And look. Well. No Phillips head or flathead screw. So what I'm going to do is take that one out, and I'm going to my trusty holder here, and I've got exactly the nut driver side that I need. So let's give that a try. Put this on reverse, and here we go. Look at how easy that is. Whoop. Now, all I've got to do, remove all that, bing, 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 bing. And then, if you look right here, holding this siding on is the exact same size. I appreciate that they kept the same size because there's some trailers that use about 3 different sizes. I don't like that. So look here. Here we go. This is the star of your show. You gotta have one of these or your forearms are gonna be tired. So get you one of these. Take out all of your metal screws, and those are the tools that you are going to need to deconstruct your camper.